Welcome to Research Perch from the Massage Therapy Foundation. Short, practical insights into massage therapy research and how it can benefit your practice.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Research Perch. I'm Michael Reynolds from the Massage Therapy Foundation Marketing Committee, here as always with Nikki Monk and Ruth Werner. Nikki, how are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks, Michael.
Awesome. Joining from your office in downtown Indianapolis. I'm also in the same city as you. It looks like the weather's not too bad today. It's sunny, crisp, fall weather.
No, I'm in a cave and I love it.
In a cave? Yeah, I have one window to look at. So speaking of windows, Ruth, I always envy your view. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. And we're having, oh my gosh, the breakers are just beautiful today. We're having a beautiful sunny day on the Oregon coast.
If only I lived by the ocean. Yes, maybe someday. So, well, good. Well, let's get started. So, thanks again for our listeners and our audience for joining us once again for Research Perch. As you know, if you've joined us before, we discuss articles from the International Journal of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork, which is at ijtmb.org. And we pull out those articles, and our goal is to bring them to life, so to speak. So to bring them to life and discuss them in a way that's approachable to massage therapists and kind of dig into some of the highlights of these articles and research studies. So today, we are discussing an article titled Perceptions of Massage Therapists Participating in a Randomized Controlled Trial. So when I first read this, I was like, okay, perceptions of massage therapists. Does that mean how people perceive massage therapists? But then I realized after I studied a bit more, it's actually the perceptions that massage therapists have about research, right? Do I understand that correctly?
Or
okay,
part of it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so you see how I could have been a little tripped up there. So it looks like there was a trial here interviewing massage therapists with their perceptions on research. So who'd like to kick us off and kind of let us know maybe the background of the trial and what it's all about?
I'd like to do that.
Okay, go for it, Ruth.
Yeah, thanks, because I feel a little connected to this. So this paper was spearheaded by Dr. Adam Perlman. And some of our listeners may be familiar with him. He's spoken at some national meetings, and he's a big advocate for massage therapy, and he's the driving force behind some of the largest NIH grants ever given to studies about massage therapy, specifically for people who have osteoarthritis. And so if people have heard me talk about a finding where a full body Swedish massage appears to be really good for pain management for people who have arthritis at the knee, even though it's not 60 minutes at the knee, and what a cool finding that is. That's Dr. Perlman's research. And so, he's still working on variations of that project, taking it to larger scales and larger scopes. He's done a dosing study and a number of other things. But one of the things he did was decide that the input of his participating massage therapists was really has the potential to shape how a good massage research study is designed and implemented. And so he and his team interviewed 7 of the massage therapists who were on the on these studies at different sites. It was a multi-site collection. They interviewed them for 30 minutes. About their experiences and their perceptions of what it was like to be involved in a research project, and also about what their recommendations were for future research projects involving massage therapists. And he found some things that seem very sensible, but they didn't anticipate from the front end, that could conceivably shape how future studies are designed when massage therapists are on the research team. And I thought that was unusually cool, just really, really great. I mean, one of the conclusions was that when you're doing research, especially on complementary and alternative medicine or complementary and integrative healthcare, where the relationship between the clinician and the patient is sometimes more complex than in a conventional medical setting, then the input of both of those parties becomes really, really important when you're conducting research about those kinds of interventions. So, yeah, why don't you want to pick up talking about themes, Nikki?
Yeah, well, actually, I want to back up just a little bit more and talk about the original study and the fact that this
The
is
arthritis study?
Yeah, and the fact that this is a randomized controlled trial, okay? And so this is kind of important because
right.
Randomized controlled trials are the gold standard, right, for explanatory research, all right? But the thing is that these were developed and designed for interventions that were not practitioner delivered. I mean, these are developed in gold standards, particularly in the pharmacological realm. And so when you're looking at a pharmacological agent, there is a pill. It's either a sugar pill or it's the active pill, and you take it, right? But we're looking at a randomized controlled trial that it's as controlled as it possibly can be, right? But now we're throwing in the squirrel piece with a practitioner delivered thing, okay? So they do a lot of pieces to control this as much as possible, right? So the original study had a very specific protocol that the massage therapists were having to use, and so this is different than the way practitioners tend to do, right? We do individualized treatments per person that's coming to us in that moment in that day, right? In fact, even within a treatment plan, our delivery and the things that we're doing are going to be a little different, right? And in a research trial like this, you can't do that, especially when it's controlled in this way. So you've got that component to it, and then another piece with the randomized controlled trial is it's randomized. So you're either getting the intervention or you're not. And so what is the thing that it was being compared to? Well, it was being compared to a sham massage, but it was basically a touch. It was a touch control group. And so
light touch on particular body parts for a prescribed number of seconds.
Right, and it was the same areas that were being addressed in the massage protocol, but instead of the actual massage being applied, it was just the hand on the shoulder for 40 seconds. And then take it off. And this was actually a protocol that was published back in 2008 by Patterson. Was the first time this was showing up. Okay, and so they were using that. And so these things that are being done, practitioners weren't consulted at the design of the study. Necessarily, right? I mean, they put this together and then they went out and hired massage therapists. Great, they came in, they participated in research. Never really been done before, and especially asking them what it was like. And now we can start getting, I think, to the themes. So there's the why it was done. So they did these semi-structured interviews with the 7 different massage therapists to start seeing what kind of feedback they were getting. And like you said, Ruth, to be able to better inform the next steps. And so we can talk about what those different, the main themes that started showing up. There were 5 of them?
I have 6.
There were 6. Sorry, I'm getting confused.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, you read off of the printed out article, and I read off of my handwritten notes. And between the two of us, we usually are able to get the whole thing. So.
Yeah. Indeed. So the first theme is that the massage therapists were excited to be a part of it. Basically, they were glad to be promoting massage through research and being involved in this collaborative endeavor. So that one,
they felt they were really contributing to the profession.
Right. And so that's a nice theme, but we're going to move on because it's not one of the juicier themes. So
it's not that surprising.
Yeah. Right. So theme number 2, they talk about the pros and cons of a standard massage protocol. So, as a massage practitioner, doing a standardized protocol like this is really counter to what we're taught and what our usual therapeutic intervention and environment is doing. And so they talk about how implementing it was sometimes challenging because it wasn't consistent with the clinical experience.
Well, and especially when clients would come in and ask, my shoulder really hurts today, can you spend some extra time or whatever? And, in a normal practice, of course, we would make, minor shifts to do that and accommodate that. But of course, in something like this. Now, I do want to explain that from the description of from here and also from reading the original study, the protocol was fairly strict, and it was a pretty standard what we learn in massage school as a Swedish massage therapy session. There are other trials, clinical trials, where massage therapists are given some wider parameters for what they do with
like
their clients.
The neck pain research that
neck pain and the jerk and low back pain one, and, you know, so there are parameters that they stay within, but they have some freedom to be creative within those parameters. And it seems like this study was stricter than that.
Yep.
And so that was an obstacle for people, especially at the beginning as they were getting used to it. And what they reported was as they, you know, continued working with these clients and everybody sort of knew what the expectations were and what was going to happen next, it became easier to do.
Right, because they were getting more than one treatment. So as they were continuing to come, they realized that it wasn't going to be changing. Yeah. So the third theme is really specifically addressing the challenges that came with the light touch sham massage.
It is hard to do a sham massage.
Well, and so there's a couple things to go with this. So one of it is the potential perceived bias that the receiver could be getting, right? It's like, what are you doing? Why are you touching me? I mean, you're just putting your hand there. What's that about? And the
therapists were not given any specific language with which to address those kinds of questions.
Exactly. And they weren't, the folks through the randomization process, they weren't told that this was a sham massage, right? They thought that this was what was
this was the intervention. And that's one of the goals of a randomized controlled trial is that you want your participants to not know whether they're getting the sham.
Right. And then so now this is juxtaposed to the practitioners who felt fraudulent. And this was going completely counter to what they're also taught to do. And they felt like they were potentially being deceptive to folks. And so what does that do in the way that I am addressing this person? And can it sort of that energy be felt about the sort of the
expectation?
Yes.
When you walk into a room and, you know, I'm going to be spending the next 50 minutes doing something that I don't believe in, and I have to pretend like I believe in it for this client, right? We have seen, I mean, there's research that indicates that practitioner expectations can have impact on what happens for the patients.
Right. And so one of the quotes that they pulled out was, it kind of asks us not to do one of the fundamental pieces of our work. Which just goes really counter to, and so this is really good feedback coming back from practitioners, but it's a really nice lead over to the next theme, which is the participant response to the light touch. Ruth, do you want to talk about that one?
Sure. I did not go back and look at the specific demographics of the people participating, you know, receiving massage in this. But what I can tell you is that a lot of the therapists reported great delight at the fact that a lot of their participants really, really enjoyed that 50 minutes or an hour of light touch. And they walked out of it feeling relaxed, like it had been the best part of their day. And the feeling among the therapists was generally that this is about, you know, loving attention and presence. And that's why this is often chosen as a control to kind of filter out, you know, how much of an effect is about that non-specific effect, or if you want to call it placebo, or if you want to call it
non-specific effects,
whatever, non-specific effect.
Yeah.
So it was an unexpected thing that the therapists were able to provide a satisfactory experience for their clients, even who were receiving the sham.
Well, I think it really, while I don't actually say this outright, I think that this is sort of reflects perhaps an evolution in the way that the massage therapists evolved in this process. At first, you know, they kind of thought, oh, this is a joke, this is terrible, I'm feeling, you know, this isn't working, because the same massage practitioners did both the sham and the treatment. I mean, for different people, of course.
For different people, right.
They were providing both things. And so it seems like that by the end of it, it was like, okay, people are getting benefit from this. And so by golly, I'm going to give the best sham massage or
Right.
control massage or touch intervention I can. And rightly so, because I tell you what, so I come back to this a lot, and so to call it a sham massage, but it really speaks to this non-specific effect, but then also an active and important ingredient of massage therapy that we cannot get away from is the fact that we are laying hands on people and we are touching them, and touch is a fundamental need and requirement for people. Mm-hmm. And so it isn't, this is a really great comparison group, because what that does is we can now see what the effect of just the touch is, and mm-hmm. that attention and positive regard, etc.
Yeah.
And then you subtract that out from the benefit that's being shown in the massage group. And so you're going to expect both ones to do well, but to really get an idea of and the massage therapists were saying that they get this too, that they see the importance of doing this. But then you're able to see what piece is the massage intervention itself, the right. technique.
Right, the Swedish massage.
Right, right.
So this is a tiny bit off topic, but it just makes me want to promote doing a research project only with the light touch, where some of the providers are trained touchers, that's massage therapists, mm-hmm. and some of the providers are not trained touchers, mm-hmm. lay people who have been informed, okay, touch the shoulder this way for 40 seconds, now go to the knee, now go to the foot, to see if there is a difference in how the recipients report.
What is your hypothesis that the outcomes of that would be, Ruth? Did I freeze? Am I frozen?
They feel that they benefited from this time, or whether they just felt creepy because someone was touching them. Who, I don't know. It's just a thought.
I think I missed the first part of it. Was I the only one that froze there? I missed the first part.
No, I think there was a gap in Ruth's explanation there. So,
Brett,
Ruth, if you can repeat that, just in case our listeners missed that too, it may be a gap in the audio.
Sure. So, with this idea of I'm just fictionalizing a new research project where we compare professional touchers to non-professional touchers. What kind of outcomes might we look for? Might be, level of relaxation.
Well, and not necessarily the outcomes, but what do you think one would be shown to be better or non-inferior?
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so, but I don't know.
I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but that's a whole other research person.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but going back, and so about this piece around touch, one of the other patient populations that they were pointing out was that the older adults especially this is excellent, this is wonderful. And so this is a group that for the most, as we get older, our opportunities of positive touch go down, and not just, perfunctory touch or whatever from being in a doctor's office or whatever is very,
task-related touch is different.
Right, yeah, task-related touch, yeah. And so here again, speaking to the meaningfulness of touch in general.
Mm-hmm.
But then going back to the other themes, the logistics.
Number 5.
Yeah, number 5, the logistics, and this is a really, really important one. Mm-hmm. And this is one that actually, so I resonate with this quite a bit. So I've done some research studies where we were using massage practitioners, community massage practitioners. And one of the things that our study did that was different from the Perlman study and other studies is we asked the massage therapists to do all the scheduling and to do it as it would happen in the real world scheduling. But in this scenario and situation, it's the researchers that are doing the scheduling, and so it's not necessarily reflective of sort of how massage therapists work and
how massage is practiced.
Right, and so when research participants didn't show up, they didn't get paid. The massage practitioners were there. They're part of the study. They're reliable study people, right? Mm-hmm. But yet they weren't being compensated for their time, and they were also taking time out from seeing clients. And I don't know how much they were compensated in this particular study, but I know, like in our study, we didn't compensate them as much as their regular rate. They very graciously did it at a reduced rate for us. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the case is here, but there was no penalties for the research.
I think that's the thing that kind of irked people the most, is that there was, as someone who no-showed an appointment, had no consequences to that. They just continued with the study.
Right, and the thing is that and this is a place where we really see the collision of how research works and how practice works, and trying to figure out ways that we can make research designs or the budgets accommodate these sorts of things. Because the thing is, you can't kick somebody out of a study for being non-compliant. That completely messes up the intention to treat aspect of it, right?
Well, and generally speaking, massage studies get fabulous compliance. I mean, the follow through, the number of people who begin and end is usually really, really high. But
the thing is that if it doesn't fit in their schedule, they're just not going to show up, because they're still going to be able to get their massage scheduled another day, because we want to, and it's, the research is much more accommodating to the research participant, but not so necessarily for the intervention provider. And so this is another place, randomized controlled trials, the rigidity and strictness of research was designed for a pill or something else, not
for people.
Not this, right? And so I am really appreciative to the Perlman group for doing the study and highlighting this particular theme that's really, really important from a practitioner standpoint. So I've heard in the past, complaints about the value of the work, and so massage therapists being asked to participate in research, but then being expected to donate that time.
Yeah.
Rather than being compensated and recognizing the value and worth that they are bringing as their expertise as the provider. And so, they're highlighting another little place that needs to have a little more balance. So not just from a compensation standpoint of no-shows or what have you, but then also from a scheduling perspective. So rather than setting it up so that it's primarily catering to the research participant, set up the design such that these are the times that the massages are being offered. Or better yet, and this is one of the things that we did in our study, let the massage practitioners do the scheduling, and then also do the follow-up calls, the reminder calls, and the like, and then compensate them for missed appointments.
Right. Well, and that it may be that the Perlman group decided not to do that in order to keep some boundaries around therapeutic relationship, right? So that you don't get drawn into a relationship through your phone calls or whatever. But
absolutely,
it definitely turned up as a major stumbling block.
Yep.
In the relationship between these therapists and their clients.
Yeah. So I think there's just identifying that this is something to consider and think about when you're designing research. And I imagine the Perlman group and we are too. When we start looking at our budgets, what are we budgeting for? We're not just going to be budgeting for the treatments. There's other pieces that could potentially be involved, and perhaps even in the design, work it out so that there are reminder calls. Or there are these sorts of pieces that might help promote compliance.
Right.
Yeah. So that was theme 5, one of my favorites, the logistical pieces. And then the last one was some of the unforeseen benefits of participating for the massage practitioner.
For the massage therapists, yeah.
So they really liked being a part of the collaborative piece. And I say this about mommyhood sometimes. I had no idea how much I'd like it. And the same is true for research. I mean, heck, I went and got my doctorate because I thought I was going to do one thing, and then found out, oh my gosh, I really like research, and I'm kind of good at it.
I say the same thing about fatherhood, Nikki.
Right?
I had no idea how much I would.
I'm pretty sure you knew you were going to like it.
I was pretty sure, but I didn't know how much.
Yeah.
With those unanticipated benefits, I would add, the delight of seeing people respond well to the sham treatment. Some people spoke about actually coming to really appreciate the protocol and the dependable routine or ritual that went into this, and taking some of those aspects back into their own practice. So it was. I think that's a theme that they did not anticipate,
Yeah.
Having people sort of share these positive experiences that they didn't foresee.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a great study, a great secondary study, right? I mean, so they had this bigger piece, and here's this whole untapped experience with checking in with the massage practitioners, and an excellent venue. The IJTMB was an excellent venue for this article, and I'm so pleased that Dr. Perlman submitted it with us.
Yeah, it looks like the therapists participating appreciated it. It says they appreciate the opportunity to promote massage through research, and it was a really positive experience. So good to see that. Yeah.
Well, and one of the final recommendations, in addition to addressing some of these logistical hurdles, is to monitor provider feedback throughout a study so that you can, respond to some of these problems, during rather than after a trial concludes. And I think it's a nice point to make that these therapists were interviewed before they knew any outcomes from the study that they were doing. So it wasn't like we had some really nice outcomes from this arthritis study. Now we'd like to ask you about your experience. It was really done before any of that data had been processed, and so the intervention providers didn't know whether their work had been effective or not at that time, based on the research. So, really nice study. Nice to see massage therapists be appreciated as collaborators in this process. And everybody that I've talked to who's a massage therapist, this was in the ebook on how to connect with a researcher. And I interviewed Dr. Perlman, and I interviewed several therapists who work in research studies, and all of them were surprised and pleased at how valued they were and how valued their opinions were. I mean, when we walk into a setting like that, you may or may not have your doctorate in whatever, but what you do have is some expertise in a way that no one else sitting around the table has, in terms of your experience with getting your hands on people. And I'm always really happy to see our expertise be valued like it is in this setting.
Agreed. And it's worth mentioning, since you did allude to it, that the ebook you wrote, Ruth, How to Connect with a Researcher, is on the Massage Therapy Foundation website. If you click on resources, I believe, I think it's near the top. So that is free. So I encourage our listeners to go get a copy of that as well. Well, thank you both. Great discussion as always. So, and thanks for joining us, everyone who's listening and viewing today. As usual, please consider downloading the entire article. It's linked below in the show notes on the blog, and if you're listening, just go to ijtmb.org and do a search for Perlman, the author, and it'll pop right up there. And go ahead and read that in more detail. But our goal here, obviously, is to bring these to life for you a bit more. So thanks for listening, and thanks for viewing. We appreciate that. And also, just a favor, one more time, if you wouldn't mind going to iTunes and leaving us a review, that would be awesome. Those of you who have done that already, we really appreciate it. It really means a lot to us. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes and go to iTunes and leave us a review for Research Perch, we would love you for it. So thanks so much for joining us. Again, Ruth and Nikki, thank you as always. Been a pleasure. And thanks everyone for joining us today. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Research Perch. Please send feedback or questions to perch@massagetherapyfoundation.org. See you next time.